Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast number 19 of the Onyx Tavern, presented by Hirotaku. We are with heroes. Once again, Raptor's here to go ahead and join us.
Good to be here. How's everybody doing?
Now, gee, Raptor, what are we going to do tonight?
Same thing we do every night, Barkeep. Try to rank all of the Super Sentai and Power Rangers costumes.
Great response. So Raptor and I have come up with a great idea for basically a two-part podcast. We're going to go ahead and give our top 5 best Sentai Ranger suits. And then our second podcast will be the top 5 worst Sentai Ranger suits. So we're, like in our previous top 5 list, we're going to go ahead and we haven't shared these with each other, so neither of us knows what the other has picked. Also, we came up with a specific criteria for doing this. One, we decided that things like scarves and capes and things like that are not going to factor into our decision because they were just styles at the time. Lack of spandex is not going to be an issue. So for the 70s, 80s Sentais, I mean that's just the way it was. We're really just going to be looking at what aesthetically is pleasing to us, what looks cool, what looks great. And to Raptor's dismay, we are not including Akiba Ranger in this list.
Yeah, you may as well consider that an honorable mention on my top 5. I love the Akiba Ranger suits.
Yes. So again, we're going to do the top 5 best today, and then the next podcast will be the top 5 worst, so keep an eye out for that. And is there anything else we need to go ahead and say before we get started?
No, I say dig in.
And we did actually rank these to number 1 will be our absolute best of all of Sentai and all of Power Rangers, and the 5, of course, is, it made the top 5.
Yeah.
But before we start, we are going to go ahead and give our honorable mention, just 1 or 2 that didn't make the cut. And Rack, I'm going to have you start and just tell me who they are and why did they not make the top 5. Because I'll tell you this, it was really hard to narrow top 5 and worst. It was actually a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Because a lot of the issues I ran into was nostalgic factor, and in some cases, not even liking the series itself that kind of factored into it. So it was kind of difficult, but who barely made your list? Or almost made your list?
Okay, so one that almost made my list, and it's interesting that you mentioned having to keep judging the suits based on whether or not you like the series, because my honorable mention goes to Car Ranger / Power Rangers Turbo.
Okay.
Now, the big reason was, for the context of the series, the costumes are great.
Yeah. I actually do like the chrome parts, and I love the headlights. That was always pretty cool to me.
And, and I also think the suits themselves are really cool. And really, the only reason I didn't put them on my top was because they don't quite fit in as well with the rest of the Sentais.
They blend in a little bit better than I think some others, and we'll probably get to those eventually. But I can see what you mean, though. The chrome really hasn't been utilized on any other team. And of course, even the chest is kind of weird with all that pipping and extra detail. So
it's great for its series.
Yeah.
But when you start putting it next to the rest of them, like on the image that I'm sure you're about to use for the for the podcast background, they stand out.
I can see that. I'm not going to argue with that at all. Now, the one that almost made my list, and I was really debating with this, was Gokaiger. I really wanted to put them on there. I can't really give a reason why, but it was just like my top 5 was just so jam-packed.
Okay.
There was just so many other good ones, but I'll tell you the 2 factors that really kind of didn't sell me on it.
Okay.
Actually 3 factors, really. And these are not necessarily negatives, but 1, I always like Rangers that have their own independent logo of each other.
Okay, all right.
Which the Gokaiger really don't have. They have the visors, and that's my second point. The visors should be uniquely different enough to where, like, if you take a Mega Ranger, Space Ranger, you can only tell they're different when you look at the side. The designs on the side are only different. Straight on, they're pretty much the same.
Right.
The thing about the Gokaiger is that they are different, but they are slight variations.
Yeah.
And the only reason you can tell they're different is because of the color, really.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to stop and look. Because, when you said that you wish that they had more variation, I took a look closer at the picture that we have here.
Yeah.
I was going to say, they do have variations, but it's very slight.
They are slight. And the third thing that kind of kept me with it, and this is kind of based also on my criteria that I had personally, is I like when how all the Rangers are exactly identical with those slight variations. What throws it for a loop that kind of kept off the list was Gokai Silver, because his costume is pretty much the same as the others except for the helmet, and the helmet always throws me off. I know why they did it. It just looks a little weird when you compare it to the others.
I accepted it based on the fact that, look at other 6 Rangers we have over the years and how much they clash.
Yeah, now a lot of them do mix pretty well, which I'll go ahead and we might get into later here. But obviously Gokai Silver was a different origin, things were different there. But it was just those 3 factors that kind of kept off my list. I may sound hypocritical once I get to my list, but again, those were just the factors I put in. But again, overall, this is just what we like aesthetically. So those are our honorable mentions right there. Let's get to the list. Raptor, start with your number 5 best Sentai Ranger costume.
All right, so at number 5, I put Die Ranger.
Die Ranger. Ooh, all right. So talk about Die Ranger.
Okay. So as you may have noticed in my top 5 Zords, I like Zords that try to do something different. I like costumes that try to do something different. And the Die Rangers are out of the modern Sentais. We're talking from the 90s onward.
Yep.
I think they are the most unique.
Yes, they really stand out. Not only for the fact that they weren't out in the Power Rangers yet, but they have enough differences that they do pop. And again, looking at the images here,
they look like some sort of Kung Fu monk's robe.
Yes. Now is that what it's kind of based on?
Actually, the big reason I included them on the list was the helmets. I adore the Die Ranger helmets.
White Ranger being the best, I think. But
I would argue against that. I thought that of them, Red had the best.
Oh, it is pretty hard to go ahead and debate between those two. But I will tell you what I do like is that I like the belts. That logo is pretty cool. Notice how the boots and the gloves are the same color, but they have white cuffs on the ankles and the wrists. Yeah. What you'll notice from a lot of Rangers here is that they'll have color. Like, look at Gal Ranger for a second. They have colored boots, but white gloves. So it kind of throws it off a bit. But what Die Ranger did is they have the colored boots and the gloves, and then have the white ring to make them stand out. That way it doesn't flow into one part of the costume. Yeah, and the helmets are great. Even the chest is fine. I love having the logo on the side there.
Yeah, it's almost like a badge.
Exactly. I think they're great. I really do. And sometimes I always feel like they're going to unzip the vest and take it off, and we'll see something else. I don't know.
And see, and I know this is going to sound hypocritical, especially when we start getting into my worst ones.
Yeah.
But really, it's how well the colors on the costume works and the helmets. The helmets are really my big reason that they're on my top, but not higher on that top.
Yeah, the helmets are definitely good because they utilize the gold, and gold is utilized because even I think in the white cuffs, and it's hard to see in the image we're looking at, but there's gold trim on just about everything. So it's not like the helmet just has the gold, but everything does. And even the eyes. If you look at the eyes are the same color. Like the Green Ranger's line has green eyes. Actually, I think that one's also a pretty cool helmet. I think the weakest helmet is probably the Yellow Ranger because you're still not sure what that is.
Yeah,
even though we know it's a Chilean, but still it is kind of odd.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, Die Ranger. Good choice to start off this list here. Now, mine's a little bit unorthodox, at least I think to some people, and I've put Kyu Ryuger as my 5th best.
Okay, now please justify.
Well, first of all, I love all the different variations and colors that we have. If you look at them as a group, it just looks like a great group shot. purple, gray, silver now, cyan,
Well, I mean,
green. I think Black Ranger is probably my favorite at the moment. His helmet it's got this weird, not boxy design, but geometrically sound kind of design.
all right, it took the helmets a while to grow on me, but they finally started.
Now I'm still. Yeah, here's the thing. When they first came out, it's the yellow teeth that bothered me. It doesn't bother me as much now because what I realized about the chest pattern.
Right.
And let's talk about those because, okay, the chest pattern goes from left to right. They got the little shoulder thing up there, which some people thought was odd. It kind of looks like a 90s Marvel comic hero stuff.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, it's the logo, and that's the eye. The piece up there is part of the eye, and it goes on the back. So when you're looking from the front to the back, it's like a three-dimensional image. That's awesome. The yellow really pops out against there, which, again, when we talked about the Yellow Ranger, that's probably why, because it didn't make any sense. And even if you look at the Spirit Rangers, and this was something brought up a couple weeks ago in the episode, the Spirit Rangers have like a copper or gold teeth as opposed to the yellow. And it just like that's what makes them Spirit Rangers. It's a diluted color as opposed to the bright yellow
compared to the currently living Rangers. And refresh my memory, does Violet have that?
Violet has yellow because he's alive.
Or she?
She yes. This Saturday, yes. And then they each have their own dinosaur logo up there. Which, again, that was one of the things that I like, is each one have their own logo. So that's up there, too. Yeah, I mean, we don't have an image of them right here where we're looking at. You guys will probably look at the images. But I just think it looks really good. They kind of went to something a little less traditional, a little less symmetrical. And what I did find in my search is that there are very few symmetrical Ranger costumes on here, and I did find that a lot of the ones that were not symmetrical were a lot more interesting. They had a lot more going on to
look
it.
For anything that is the only perfectly symmetrical ones I can
like O-Ranger is perfectly symmetrical.
Oh yeah, and as is Go-Go 5 / Lightspeed Rescue and
Time Force, Time Ranger,
Dino Thunder, Opera Ranger.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot that are like those, but even though it's like the biggest, people again that's the biggest thing that the people have with it is because of that shoulder pad and its design. There's something about it that really speaks to me. I don't know what it is, and again I just like all the variation of dinosaurs, and there are so many. Even the arms have that detailed pattern on them, which I know you're against for the Black Ranger.
Because, alright,
it's lighter than the others.
So each one, it is a slightly different shade of their color.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that, but I just think that Black's is too noticeable.
I think it is a little bit light.
A darker gray.
Now, the reason I brought that up is the one I don't like, and he's not officially a Ranger technically, is the Death Ranger from the upcoming movie, basically. He's navy blue, but his arms are red. His design is really out there, and I kind of thought of not putting him on the list to replace him with the Gokaiger because of that guy. But really, he may just be
part of the main team.
He's just a movie exclusive. He's probably just going to be a bad guy. I'm not exactly sure what the plot is and stuff.
Yeah, he's probably going to be in and out.
But if I don't include him, then the 10 that we have, those are just awesome. So
yeah, that works.
Yeah. So yeah, again, probably a little controversy to a couple of videos. I know a lot of people don't like Q Ranger right now, but I think it's growing.
We're judging aesthetics here.
Exactly. And again, and just, I know I didn't say this at the beginning, but it's all our opinion. It's just what we think. So, you can have your own opinion and stuff, but this is just what we think is cool.
Okay. So I guess that's on to number 4.
Yeah. Your fourth best?
I put Hurricaneger / Power Rangers Ninja Storm.
Okay.
This is again going off of the different, but in a good way, to quote Linkara. And it's for a lot of the same reasons that I put Die Ranger on there. I adore the silver sleeves.
Yeah, and the leggings on the Blue Ranger.
Yeah, I think that because in that way it looks so it doesn't seem like spandex on the primary color part of the suits. It looks like it's a vest or something.
Like chainmail.
Yes, almost like chainmail. And it makes them look more like warriors in that way.
I mean, I definitely see what you're saying there. I do like the shoulders, although I kind of think, with the Blue Ranger, or when they changed to female in Gokaiger and all that, that I think it works great in the legs. And I just wonder why the guys just couldn't have it. Kind of like maybe like a Superman groin kind of thing, maybe.
Oh God, no, that's.
I don't know.
That's a contributing factor on my other list.
Well, what threw me off is like, yeah, you got the arms, but I kind of think you should do all the limbs. I don't know. It seems kind of weird to me. But what I like most about them is the Thunder Rangers. Here's what if you look at them, they have black pants. And their torso is their main color, and they got the arms.
And
I like that. I think that's a good
parts of their armor.
Exactly. I think that's a good balance. They got those shoulder pads. I don't get the knee pads though. That's what really throws me off is the knee pads.
It's probably just armor because their chests are armored. So
yeah, but I almost kind of think there should be something on their thighs if they're going to have something on their knees between their boots. I don't know why, but I think the best helmets there are the Navy and Crimson Rangers, or Kabuto and Stag, or wherever you want to go ahead and call them. But I think those two are the best. I just think that...
See, I prefer the core three to them.
And of course what throws it off is the Samurai Ranger, or whatever he's called in Japan at the moment. He doesn't really seem like he belongs when you look at the others have animal-based helmets, and his isn't an animal-based helmet. That always kind of bothered me, even with the helmet spinning, which it's great, but... The thing about Six Rangers to me is they need to be able to...
look like they belong in a group shot.
Yes. I mean, if all it was that you put an extra shield on him, or where he has silver, you put gold, I can accept that.
It works with Z Ranger / Power Ranger.
And even in Gal Ranger. If you look at Gal Ranger, it's the exact same thing, except there's an extra thing of blue on there, but it's the same design, pretty much. So, I like... Hurricaneer. They didn't make my list though. But yeah, I can see why you like it. I think it looks good. But again, I think the Thunder Rangers really have the best.
That's fair.
Okay. My next, we're going to actually take a trip to the 80s now.
Okay.
Number 4 on my list is Flashman.
Okay.
Now the thing about Flashman, first of all, I love their helmets. Because Flashman is the 80s perception of the future. I just kind of like that roundness, almost kind of bulkiness, but not really to it.
They look like a 70s / 80s perception of a space helmet.
Exactly. There's just something really appealing about that that I enjoy. I love the little gem or crystal they have on the top of their helmet, which is really cool. Their main suits are their colors, but they have the black running down the side, which kind of helps separate it. And then the arms are white on all of them, and the legs are white on the girls, because the guys, they don't have a little crotch thing.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of color into it, and it's separated appropriately. Because if Raptor's looking here, look at the Yellow Ranger, look at her leg. The entire profile of her body is in black, but the entire front and back is in yellow. There is just something about that speaks to me, and I don't know what that is.
I would say, I mean, because really, up until a certain point, Sentai tried to be pretty strictly science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, out of all the 80s Sentais, everything pre-Zeo Ranger, it looks the most sci-fi.
I almost put Bioman on my list for the exact same reason. Sometimes I get Bioman and Flashman kind of mixed up because they are pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing about Bioman is that I think there is a little bit too much white, and the design's a little odd with the stripes on their thighs. But Flashman, I think, kind of...
And the circuitry on their chests.
Yeah, that for some reason, that seems a little dated. I don't know why. But the Flashman, I think they just get right. The colors work well.
I would say they perfected the idea, because if you look at it going right down the line, they were toying with that idea from Bioman to Changeman and then to Flashman.
Yeah,
It looks like they finally got the idea right.
There's an actual good stretch in the 80s of some pretty decent costumes, I think. But I think of all the ones in the 80s, I really like this one above most of the others. So yeah, I mean, again, it's very science fiction-y. It fits in with the premise. And again, and I have to admit, I love the red, pink, yellow, blue, and green color scheme probably the most out of any other color schemes.
I'll agree with you there because
it's
colorful. A lot of times they switch out black. But when you have green instead of black to start a series off, it looks, because it's all primary colors.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, and then the pink and green are variations, but...
Because it's color, and sometimes black.
Yeah, black and white are neutral colors, so they're not really... But and going back to Kyrie, that's what I like, is like you have all these different varieties of colors. You have the warm colors, the cool colors, the neutral colors, and so forth. Mm-hmm. But the thing I just, again, Flashman, it's very colorful.
I respect that choice, and looking back, I'm thinking I should put them on my list somewhere.
I have to admit, when I did this list, I definitely wanted to try to get something from the past that was not in Power Rangers. So, because again, it's Sentai and Power Rangers, not just Power Rangers.
Let's face it, the pre-Zoo Sentais are really prone to getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, exactly. At least for American audiences. So,
well, even in Gokaiger, how 5 of the 80 Sentais passed off their greater powers at once.
Yeah, and you saw my thing about the Gokai Zords and what I thought about that. So that was more marketing than anything.
Anyways, let's keep moving.
Okay, so let's hear your number 3 best suits here.
Excuse me. All right, so I thought it was interesting that you said that we were not going to make scarves and lack of spandex a disqualifying factor. Mm-hmm. Because my number 3 is Sun Vulcan.
Sun Vulcan. Now that's an interesting pick.
All right, so you just mentioned how you thought that Bioman was the best of the... Not Bioman.
Flashman.
See, I'm getting them mixed up too.
Yeah.
That Flashman was the best of the science fiction-y 80s Sentais.
Yeah, one of the best, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought that Sun Vulcan was the best of the Scarf era costumes.
I could see that, yeah.
I think that... Now, let me explain a little more why.
Okay.
I think that they have a great balance of their color along with the white. I think utilizing white on a costume can either really make one or really destroy one.
And what's good about them is that they have the white boots and the white gloves, but they also have white scarves in this V shape on their chest.
But look at their boots. They have accents of their primary color.
In the same V shape.
So it's not just a big, solid white boot.
Exactly, and that's something a lot of other series kind of have problem with, is that they just have solid colored boots without any designs. Some of it works fine, but we're kind of looking here, look at Gokaiger, Operation Overdrive. They have the silver chrome on the boots. That adds to it. It's something that just
look at the Mega Rangers. Those are just
plain white.
There's no space.
Yeah, just plain white. Even the Turbo seems to have just like a black stripe, but that's about it. And you need to be able to cut the colors. You just can't...
You need to be able to notice them.
Exactly.
And so with the accents on the Sun Vulcan boots, you notice them because they're not directly attached to the rest of the suit, which is solid color, at least on the pants. They stand out, and I think it's great. And maybe it's because they have a little bit of Kamen Rider flair to them. I
think that was originally the idea. I tell you, here's the thing that kind of throws me off. Each of the helmets has an eagle, a panther, and a shark. Great detail on it. It looks really good if you look at it up close. Mm-hmm. The only thing is, it just seems a little bulky to me. Like they're about to fall over because of this giant bust of an animal right on top of their helmet. So it just looks kind of odd compared to the others. But looking at the early helmets, they do look decent.
I was about to say, if you want to talk about bulky helmets, we've got other Sentais you can point a finger at.
But yeah, I definitely like that. And I just wonder... Because one of the things I always thought about Gokaiger is why didn't they just kind of do spandex updates of them? Mm-hmm. And that would be one that I think would look good with a spandex update or something, just to see what it looks like,
Well, I mean, look at the design of that. Some of the pre-spandex Sentais would not look good in spandex.
Yeah.
Let's go to the very beginning. Look at O-Rangers. Those would not look that good in the more shiny, glossy spandex.
Especially not for the Yellow Ranger, I think. But he was always a fat guy too. That was always the weird thing about him. So, but yeah, so I agree with Sun Vulcan. It looks good. So yeah,
and I like the helmets. It's weird. I can be really picky about ornamental helmets.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing is it's hard to see in this photo right here, but they got the little sun logo on there, which just like the others, it looks like a badge and looks good.
And in that way, it makes them look like because they're government agents and maybe not government.
They work for somebody.
They work for somebody. They're not just
because I think the thing is pre-Zero Ranger, not many of these were mythical or fantasy based.
If you consider it, a lot of the more fantasy based ones is the team working for some kind of hobo with magic powers.
Yes. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and move on to my third one, and we're going to stay in the 80s here. Because now what I specifically said was that Flashman is one of my favorites, but I think what is better than the Flashman is Live Man.
Okay.
Okay, where do I begin with these guys? Great. Again, their tops are all their colors. The bottoms are in white. They have the colored boots and the colored gloves. I love the animal pattern on their chest, except for yellow. Yellow's the one that is really weird, because if you look at his is fully colored in, whereas the others are just kind of like outlines of their animals. But again, because it's yellow.
That is kind of strange, yeah.
The jewel on the belt buckle, I think that's really cool. And then the helmets. I mean,
the jewel is very reminiscent of the belt buckles from Zero Ranger
But I love the helmets. The helmets are just really really cool.
Okay, so
he's wincing over here.
I do not. I agree with you on 4 of the 5 helmets.
Okay, which helmet doesn't work?
All right, well, before I get into the helmets, remember what I was just saying about too much white on a costume?
Yeah.
These guys are a prime example of it. So they have these. These are just solid white pants.
Yes, I see that. Mm-hmm.
And not only that, they go higher. They're like higher than waist high.
Just barely. I mean, I don't think the buckles are at their belly buttons or anything.
It really looks like that with red.
Yeah, kind of.
Maybe it's just because of how he's standing in that picture.
Yeah.
But I do not like solid white pants on a Sentai costume. You'll see this come up when we do the next one. But I do not like solid white pants. I think it's distracting from the main colors. I mean, look at this picture. In some, like on red, it almost looks like there's more white than red. And if that's happening, I think you have a problem, because none of them are white Rangers.
Yes. I mean, I do see what you're saying about the white, because with the V logos and the pants and all that kind of stuff, but it seems balanced to me to where their pants are white, the tops are other colors. If you look at a lot of images of these guys, they just look, I don't know what it is. They're kind of reminiscent of the Zoo Ranger in that...
their helmets are very reminiscent of the Zoo Rangers, and I would say they are a very direct predecessor to the kind of things that we get from Jetman and then Zoo Ranger.
And I am going to go on a limb and say that I do think that Red Hawk has the best bird helmet.
We'll get to that. Anyways.
Well, I do think they're really good. I like, and again, each of these have their own individual logos. Again, that's another thing. They're all symmetrical, which looks good. Yellow's the only one that sticks out like a sore thumb in some instances, but that's only if you think about it too much.
Okay, so but before we go, I'd mentioned that I liked 4 of the 5 helmets. I do not like Black's helmet.
Because too much white into it?
Too much white. It's... it would be okay if it's accents, like on red or blue's helmets. But no, that is just those are just big, ugly chunks of white.
This is the first disagreement we've had on the costumes, and I like it. It's great.
I do not like them. They're, in my opinion, one of the worst of the 80s Sentai costumes. But,
well, I enjoy it greatly. Now, let's move on.
Yes.
What is your number 2 best? We're getting to the top here. What's your number 2 best?
Okay, so this would seem like a cliche choice, and this is why it's not my number 1.
Okay.
Zeo Ranger / Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
They are also my number 2. So let's take an opportunity to both talk about them right now. You first.
Okay, so what really puts them up so high on this list is they have the best helmets. There may be singular Sentai helmets that are better, but as a team, as a whole, they have the best helmets in all of Super Sentai and all of Power Rangers.
It definitely looks like on the helmets that there could be a little bit emoting with it, especially from the Red Ranger, because whenever you look at him, even when Rocky was in that suit and that voice was coming out of him, it still looked fierce, like he looked like a badass.
Yes, it almost looks expressive. And you bring up that you like it when they're similar but unique. Each of those helmets are unique. You couldn't get away with changing, with color swapping one of those helmets and trying to pass it off as the same Ranger.
There's been a lot of people out there saying, like, they should have made the original Green Ranger black and made the Black Ranger green to fit in better with the color scheme or something like that. And I've seen, like, pictures of it, but no, there's no way you can make that elephant any other color than black. And
you could. I mean, if you would have seen it as green first, you would probably...
but there's just something about, and again, with nostalgia factor, that's what kind of kept it from my number 1, because I didn't want to be cliche with it, but it is really hard not to put them there in the top 5.
And I think the designs of and they utilize the white well, because it's not a big clump of white.
Yeah, and then their boots and their gloves, which have the diamond patterns on there, the chest, which has diamond pattern, and the Pink Ranger, she has the white on the trim of her skirt to make it cut off. And even when they do the Yellow Ranger and Gokaiger, has this white on the skirt, which looks great. Now, let me say real quick about the helmets, 2 things. One, the Pink Ranger always did kind of bug me a little bit because of all that white.
It looks like it's bulkier than the others, when size-wise it's probably just the same.
But because it's a pterodactyl, I see why they did it. She's the only female on the team, so it's not as big of a deal, I think, because it does kind of help her stand out in that regard. It was the
pterodactyl's wings that made me accept it.
Yeah, and it goes all the way around, too. That's another big key to it.
Yeah, and it's just, the masks look alive and expressive. And I adore that about them.
And I have to ask this question. We didn't actually address at the beginning, but does it matter, or is it a big deal to you if they have lips or nothing on the helmets? Because,
there are times when it does, and there are times when it doesn't. Maybe I accept the lips just because the eyes on the helmets make them look expressive anyway, so I'm accepting of lips.
It's hard to really look at those helmets without the lips.
I don't care about it as much. See, I don't like the lips on Time Ranger, Time Force, and Gokaiger, Mega Force.
Yeah, the ones on Gokaiger are really wonky, if you ask me. Time Ranger, it's kind of okay, but, on here it works fine because I've tried just a few times kind of covering up with my hands, see what it looks like, and it looks very awkward and it gives a great balance, I think. And I don't think you could do a Dire Ranger Silver or what they do Kaku Ranger, none at all. But I think that was a pretty good compromise. And I think the year before, did Jetman have lips on their helmets? I can't tell from the image. It's a little too small for me.
1 second, I've got this somewhere.
And actually, are they the first ones to have lips on their costumes, other than Battle Fever J?
I think, other than Battle Fever J, they're the first ones to have the metallic lips. They're the ones that had, mouthpieces that were distinct from the rest of the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But they were the first ones to have defined lips. And if you think about it, it hasn't popped up that often. It's only popped up again in Time Ranger and Gokaiger.
O-Ranger, Car Ranger, Gigamon.
Oh, yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
I didn't think about the O-Ranger so much because
It's in with the color, so it doesn't stand out.
It's not a mouthpiece. It just happens to be in the shape of
Yeah.
lips, but when they're in motion, you don't even notice it.
Exactly, but when you get up close to it, it balances it out. Now, two other things we need to talk about these guys, and we're going to kind of extend this section a little bit, is, okay, so we know with all the original media of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Diamond always had the power coin in the chest. How do you feel about it not being there? Because the thing is, I never understood why there were the diamonds to begin with, and this was before I knew about Sentai. But once we get to Aber Ranger, the reason the Aber Ranger and Key Ranger are the way they are is because it's like teeth coming down.
Yes.
I don't really see that in the Zyuranger.
I think it is, in a way, it's almost like Superman's S.
Okay.
It's like a big triumphant emblem. And I know that, well, if it's an emblem, why don't they have, say, the images that they have on their bucklers?
Yeah.
But
it's like Superman Returns. You have a belt buckle with the S logo and then the S logo right in your chest. So
yeah, it would be redundant because I think the belt buckles are great.
Yes, because they have the morpher and they have the blaster right there.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the.
And it's just I like the image of their little animal cast in metal.
Exactly. It looks a lot better than if it was some sticker, even imprinted design like in Live Man. I mean, it works for Live Man, but Live Mans are not that detailed. The details on the power coins are just so.
I think it makes them look more fierce and dignified.
Oh,
I don't think they would have looked as fierce and dignified. Just imagine if those diamonds all vanished from this picture.
Yeah, and that. I don't know what you would replace it with would be the thing. I tell you, when I was a kid, I got a bootleg Power Ranger where instead of a diamond, it was a spade. Like deck of cards was a spade. And it was...
Going all Jack Q with this.
It was really weird to go ahead and see it. They didn't use dinosaurs. They were using some other gimmick, basically. But it was just... I don't know what else you could go ahead and put there, but I always feel like something's missing,
it would have
but
been
not really.
redundant to have... to have dinosaur on the chest and dinosaur on the
I almost
buckle.
wonder if it, like, maybe originally they were going to do, like, the Zyuranger Z or something like that,
That would have been awkward to ride around come second season of Power Rangers.
Or even first season of Power Rangers. Now, of course, the elephant in the room right here is the Green Ranger.
It's not Mammoth Ranger?
Oh! He said it, not me, folks.
I wasn't making a black joke. I was making an elephant joke.
Okay. So his variations and differences is obviously the shield, the gold on his gloves and boots, the black belt as opposed to the white belt, and the fact that there are no diamonds on his gloves but just pointed edges. Now, how do you feel about that? Because I always thought that it would be better if it was the diamonds, but like I said about Six Rangers, if you take the shield off and all the gold trim, he is exactly like the other Rangers.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the episodes where he ditches the shield.
Yes, which is a lot more awesome in Japanese footage than it is in the American footage.
That's beyond the point.
He always looked like he had a fuzzy suit in the American footage. Don't ask me why, it just seemed that way.
See, I really like the green shield.
Mm-hmm.
And the other things, I don't even really notice.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like you don't know those the right way, but when you take a good look at it, you're like, that does seem a little different, because I never really thought, because if you actually look at his belt, it's black, and his holster's on the left, because that's where he has his dagger, and the Rangers, they have theirs on the right, because that's more or less a gun before it's a dagger.
Okay, let me talk about why I really like the gold shield.
Okay.
The gold shield allows him to look different and look cool, because that's the whole point. When the Green Ranger first shows up, he's supposed to be different than everyone else.
He's supposed to be them, but stronger.
Yeah, and so he has this big suit. But like you said, be them, but stronger. So when you take off the shield, he looks the same as the rest. So in that way, he looks like he belongs in a group picture.
Exactly. Now, I do have to ask this question. We're not going to talk about the American shield and the cloth and all that kind of stuff, but with Super Mega Force and Dino Thunder and all, what do you think about the lighter shade of green and the silver lining to the suit? Because it doesn't really bother me.
I would care for it. Oh, sorry. I would care for it more if it was gold. because then it would match the shield.
I can see what you're saying there. It doesn't really bother me if he's with the other Rangers together in a group. It would bother me. But if this was like a progression of Tommy's character and progression of the Green Ranger powers, it's not that big of a deal. But the whole reason it is what it is because they had to remake the whole thing from scratch, and they just didn't get it right.
My problem with it is that it's just silver out of nowhere. Because other than that, there is no silver to him.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, but
I would have preferred gold because he has a big gold shield.
Exactly. But hey, Zoo Rangers are awesome. They are cool. It's great designs.
And really, I think it's the designs of those suits that helped Power Rangers to succeed in America.
Because maybe Die Ranger could have had the same effect, but I don't think Jetman would have. But I think it's the fact that it was dinosaurs, and we're talking about the early 90s.
When Jurassic Park was...
Dinosaurs, and Denver the Last Dinosaur, Dinosaucers, all those dinosaur things that were still permeating in the culture, and that just helped to take off.
But you know what? Bioman was Spawn's first attempt, right?
Well, Dynaman wasn't the first known attempt, but Bioman was the first Saban to do it, yeah.
See, I don't think, if you... Say you take everything about the first season of Power Rangers. Same characters, same villains, but just replaced the Zoo suits with the Bioman suits. I don't think it would have sold as well.
It's the Zords, I think, also that helped sell it. Because those were, if you look at the history of Sentai, those Zords were there's a cutoff point and starts with Zoo Ranger and Zords when they went to different philosophy. Yeah. But that's a different subject altogether. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to move on to number ones. Now, before we get to number one, I will go ahead and say that you already mentioned my number one in this list. My number one was Die Ranger for all the reasons that we talked about. So no need to go into that any further, except we didn't talk about the White Ranger. But I don't think there's anything to really go ahead and say because that's just a classic look.
He works for a lot of the same reasons that the Green Ranger worked with Zoo Ranger.
And I love how his logo is right on his chest. I almost wish that the other Rangers had power-up of the exact same thing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But that was before we did team power-ups and stuff. So, yeah, Die Ranger number one for my list, and I am enthusiastic to see who is number one on your list.
Well, you probably would have guessed this just by seeing them not earlier on my list, but you already mentioned them in your honorable mentions. My favorite are the Gokaigers.
Okay, we can talk about them a little bit more. Because again, I
didn't go into why I adore them, because I didn't want to spoil the ending of mine.
Okay. Well, I tell you, because they do look good. It's just, I really had a hard time putting them
with
on
the
my
lack of
list.
individuality. I understand that.
Yeah, but...
I like them because their suits are just so cool. They look like pirates.
Yes.
They look like adventurers, warriors. And what really sells that are the coats.
Yes, because it looks like it is a different layer. Like they could take those off.
Yeah.
Especially with the collars.
Yeah. And also, they balance so many different colors well. Because look at a Gokaiger suit.
Gold,
you have their primary color.
Yes.
Black, gold, white, silver.
Yeah, the logos on the front of the helmets. It does seem redundant, but it just looks awesome with it on the chest and on the helmet. And that's why I love using the Gokaiger logo for the channel, just because
Gokaiger logo is awesome.
It's awesome, yeah. It's one of the best.
And maybe I'm a bit guilty of letting series love influence me here, because I adore Gokaiger, but I just think they have the best suits. And even, this is more apparent more so on Marvelous and Joe than the others, but even the visors, they look expressive.
Yes, they really do.
Because it looks like, look at Gokai Red in particular. It looks like he's snarky, which is exactly what Marvelous does.
But they just look fierce is the thing. Yeah.
Fierce more so than other ones. See, that was something that the Zoo Rangers did well as well. They looked fierce.
Now, I'm looking at this right here, and I'm going to say the visor I don't like the most, I'd say the bottom of that list, would probably be the Yellow Rangers because it looks so wide. But I have to ask, do they have black trim on these helmets, or is that just shadowing?
I think it's just shadow.
Okay, because it looks like it's green over here, but
I think
gold.
It's just shadow. Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be.
Oh,
From,
and
from
another one.
image.
Another one that does well. Pink's visor.
Yes, because it does.
It doesn't look as fierce and snarky as the rest, and that fits in with
and it
Iron's
looks feminine
personality.
too.
Yes.
And
then
yeah.
Again, and Yellow's is more rounded. It's not as rounded as Pink's, but it's more rounded than the males of the team.
What color are their boots?
The boots are all their colors.
Okay.
It's the primary color with a silver cuff.
Okay. Now the gloves are white, so I guess that throws it off.
Along with their neck sleeves.
Yes. So it works. I mean, they just barely made my list, and I almost regret not putting them on there. But actually, I'm glad I didn't put them on there because we would have talked about Gokaiger a long time ago and ruined your number one too.
And it just seems every color it's not on there just once. You know, because even the silver, because the inside of their collars is silver. You know, one of my problems with the silver trim on the Green Ranger helmet, there's no other frickin' silver on the rest of that suit. Every individual color has a mate on these costumes.
Yes.
So, yes.
Now,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, but what do you think about the Silver Ranger? Because again, it's the helmet that throws me off because his costume is pretty much identical to the others.
Helmet side, it is identical.
Yeah, but the helmet, somebody had a picture where they had the Gokai silver helmet next to like a rapist, a guy with a baseball cap and like dark glasses, and it's like they look a little similar. And I was like, wow.
I like the Gokai silver helmet, not as much as I like the main helmets, but I accept it because he's supposed to be very different from them. In fact, you know, he was born on a completely different world and society than the rest of them. I mean, technically they were all born on different planets, but
yeah,
they're all aliens, guys in Earthling, and they get them from a different source.
It's the unique origin,
and it's still piratey.
Exactly, and I understand when he goes into his gold mode and stuff like that, which is a little wonky when you think about it. But
the gold mode helmet is a bit wonky for me. I'll agree with you there.
Even the shield is, but it's still cool because of what it's doing and all that. And you know, I almost kind of wish that there was something like that for all the Rangers, because one of the things about Gokaiger that I was a little upset about is that, yeah, we got our fair balance of the costumes and stuff, but I kind of wish that there was a power-up for their suits other than gold mode, kind of like a Lights of Orion or SWAT mode or something like
super
that.
Mode. Okay, I will agree with you there. That was a bit disappointing.
But again, their focus was really changing to the other team, so there was no need for a super mode. And you know, like I've always said about Gokaiger is like I just kind of feel that they a lot of times got overshadowed by who they turn in today, as opposed to focusing on them in a lot of cases. But yeah, again, these guys barely made my list. I think you almost convinced me to put them up on there, but again, it's really hard to squeeze out. And again, I did find it really difficult for this list to figure out who we're going to go ahead and put on there. But I think we did it. We got everything that we want to go ahead and say. Any final thoughts you want to go ahead and point out before we go?
No, well, one closing thought. I should have put the Go Busters on my, not my top list, but my honorable mentions.
Honorable mention, yeah. And again,
different in a good way. I really think they pulled it off. They look like a sci-fi special ops squadron.
Yes, they do. Well, we want to thank you guys for listening. If your opinions are different here, please just leave it in the comments and say, hey, this is what my favorite is, and we'd like to go ahead and hear from you. And shortly, we will be posting our next video, which will be the 5 worst Sentai Ranger costumes, in our opinion. So, everybody have yourself a good night. Raptor, say good night.
Yeah, nice to be back, and I look forward to letting you guys know about my bottom 5.
Oh, yes, me too. So, good evening, have a good time, and the tavern is now closed.